Welcome to the fish tank.
Hey everybody, Fishman here, and welcome to another video. Before I get started on this video, there were a number of questions a little bit too complicated to answer in the comments section for Wednesday's video. So for those of you who had concerns or interests or just didn't know what was going on, stick around to the end because I am going to try and answer those questions as best as I can. Try to clarify what that filter doesn't do. And for those of you who are interested, I put a light over it and I put the first plants in it. So those of you who just want to have a look at that, also stick around to the end. Now, ever since I started working with acrylic, welding it together, I've always used methylene chloride. It works really well. There's no downside to it. It has a very high vapor pressure, so it evaporates so fast that you don't have to spend too much time fiddling with the bits and pieces, and you can put a project together quite quickly. But also, ever since I started working with it, people have asked me what I thought of this, and this is Weldon 4. Obviously, Weldon has a number of products, and as far as I know, I'm not an expert by any means, of course, because this is my first attempt at it. As far as I know, the different numbers just refer to how viscous it is. So I think it goes, the lower the number, the more viscous. So I picked up 4 because it would be probably the most comparable to methylene chloride in the sense that it would hopefully have roughly the same vapor pressure. So I picked it up because I was doing an order online. First off, it is more expensive. Which is not a big deal. It's not like really pricey. And it comes in a can. The can looked like it had been stomped on. You saw it wobbled in the beginning there. But it's packaged really well. It is a sealed can. You actually have to cut it open with a rather robust utility knife or some other means. You can't just open it up. Now, when I did open it up, the first thing that hit me was the smell. It is a lot stronger. To tell you the truth, when I originally thought about picking this up, I thought it was just going to be methylene chloride. I thought because it is, like I said, the least viscous, I thought there wouldn't be any additives to it. I thought it would just be that. But the only smell I really recognize is, I think it has turpentine in it. Some sort of solvent along those lines, and it is quite strong smelling. A lot stronger smelling than methylene chloride. Now, that aside, the only thing so far I can really say against it has to do with the applicator, which is similar to the applicators I first started working with methylene chloride. It doesn't leak, which is nice, but it is very difficult because there's so much air in the container to regulate the flow coming out of it. So you have to be very careful. You squeeze just a little bit too much, you'll end up with a lot coming out. But that's not against the against the Weldon 4. Now, as far as applicating it, like putting it where it needs to go, it is relatively straightforward. I mean, you see me doing it here now. It is more viscous than methylene chloride, which means its vapor pressure is not quite as high. So the pros and cons of that is, if you have it in not quite the right position, you have a little bit more time to adjust it and get it where you want it to go. Methylene chloride, if you screw up right up from the beginning, you can break it off and then reposition it, but it doesn't have much in the way of wiggle time to get things slightly better off. It sets up much faster. I'd say probably about twice as fast. But that is not necessarily a bad thing one way or another. Like I said, it's just how much time you have to do stuff and things like that. So it's not really a big deal. Now, I'm going to put a bunch of little pieces here together. I'm going to let them set for a few minutes, and then I am going to try, not break them, but I'm going to try and wiggle them around a bit and see which one has a bit more tensile strength. Now, to be fair, like perfectly fair with these two things, I should probably let these set like for 24 hours. When I build anything that's going to hold water, even with methylene chloride, I don't fill it up right away. I make sure that the gaps, like when something evaporates, it's easy when it's just exposed to air, but when you have like 1/4 inch, it takes a fair amount of time sometimes for the little amount of liquid that's in underneath, like right in the center of that 1/4 inch, to actually evaporate. And once that's gone, of course, you have the strongest joint. So I like the clarity of it. I think it fills like a little bit of rough cuts from the saw a little bit better. It is not as strong at this point. There's definitely more wiggle to it. You can see right there that it moves more. But again, this is just like initial impressions, and this is just a few moments after I've glued it. I am going to be doing more of these, because initially when I did this, initially when I did this, if I was being perfectly honest, I was putting this together with the impressions, well, let's see how many things I can find wrong with Weldon 4. That in itself is probably not the best way of going about something, but the neat thing about it is I was surprised. The only thing I don't really like about it is the smell, and that's not really a big deal. So I'm going to give this one more attempt here, or one more setup, but I'm going to use a syringe to do it, because that is the best way. I mean, I don't really like those other applicators. They are not very good, and for me to make sure I get exactly the amount of glue, call it glue, it doesn't really matter, where I want it to go and not have any splashing or excess, this is the best way of doing it. So I'm going to hook this up. I'm going to do 2 more pieces, and then I'm going to have a closer look at the actual the joint. I think it's going to fill better, but that also means that it's not going to be as crystal clear as it is with methylene chloride, because methylene chloride literally melts the 2 sides, and when it's gone, all that's left is acrylic. And I think there are additives in this. I think there's something else besides the solvent, and that may result in a little bit more translucence to the joint, but I'm going to let it cure overnight, and I'm going to read the comments that you guys are going to put into this, and sometime next week or a little bit after, I will put together something a little bit more comprehensive as far as testing this goes. If people want to see how it holds for just holding water, like I'll build a box out of it, or other things. Whatever you guys think might be interesting for this, definitely let me know, and I will get around to doing all that sort of stuff. But I just want to, like I said, this is just my initial attempt at using it and my initial impressions. And I also, at this point, I really want to, because I decided this is actually kind of interesting, I'm seeing how the syringe responds to it. I don't store methylene chloride in the syringe, because it will gradually eat away at the stopper and it won't work anymore. So I'm going to see how the Weldon 4 does for that. So anyway, there you go. You can see it has wiggle, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. We'll see how that is long term. So this is like about a minute later, and I mean, you be the judge. Do you think that this has the joint itself? I'm going to hold it up a little closer to the camera here in a second, and you let me know if you think that is clearer or you see a little bit of translucence to that. So definitely let me know in the comments below what you think about it. First impressions, it's perfectly fine. So now let's get to this filter. I really like the leak-proof canister filters. I call them canister filters because the original build, the original ones I did for this, I put it in a cylinder. It was a 4-inch PVC pipe, and I had a cap at the other end, and I just had water go across it. Basically a canister. Could I call it a tube? It doesn't really matter. What happens in this style is water goes in one end, water goes out the other end. It does not, at any point, have to be forced through the media. That's actually not the point of it. The point is the water goes across. There's turbulence, as you can see. The plants are just an add-on. Normally I don't do that. Because of the turbulence, water will flow down through the gravel at a much slower flow rate. And sediment will accumulate in there. You'll end up with a nice anaerobic layer near the bottom, and less so near the top. And as you get to the top, of course, you're into the aerobic. Now, the joy of this kind of filter is it never needs to be cleaned. Now, I've never made one in the light before, so that may change things a little bit, because this is clear. As I said in the last video, I will be putting a light guard along the front just so that we can see how the bed matures and don't have to worry about the algae building up there. But this is not, like I said, this filter here is what I call passive filtration. It's not meant to be a mechanical filter. It doesn't do any of that. It will kind of supply a little bit of that simply because sediment will it will basically settle down into the gravel, and it will be removed from the system, but that's not its intent. This is purely a biological filter. Imagine water flowing down a river, exactly the same kind of concept. Someone wanted to know what the flow rate was in this particular setup. It is 185 gallons per hour. I left it on full. There's no real need to measure it. Faster flow rates don't mean anything. Slower flow rates don't mean anything. It's whatever kind of pump you have, what kind of how it'll hold up. The input and the output are exactly the same. The piping you saw there is just so I can have it return to the same tank, because the tank's only 1 foot wide and this is 2 feet long. I hope that helps everybody. This is a passive filter. The plants, like I said, are new, so we'll see how that works out. But water goes by. It will sometimes get stirred into the gravel a little bit. But the nice thing about it is, if it misses it on the first pass, it'll go back through again. So let me know what you think. Hopefully that clarifies everything. And as always, if you like this style of video, please like and or subscribe. And leave me lots of comments. I will try and get to whatever I can. Things are starting to open up a little bit here now, so next week might be a little bit busy for me, because I'm going to have some really ugly aquariums that haven't been seen in 2 months that are going to need to be cleaned. We'll just call it that. Actually, I plan once that all starts happening, I'm going to record all that, and let me know if you want to see how those things go. Let's see what COVID-19 did to my business. Let's just call it that. I will be doing some of those updates as well. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and bye for now.